we had one big so-called dead on arrival film, which was Shah Rukh Khan's film Ravan, which we tested, and he himself was involved in the process.
Which are the films or the bits were changed after looking at the feedback provided by you, sir?
So one of the biggest ones is a film called Mulk. They didn't just change a scene or add a scene. They actually reshot the entire climax. Another example will be Gully Boy.
Let's talk about the focus screenings. How does it work? How do you select the viewers for these test screenings, the venue, and what type of questions that are asked to the audience?
So the way it works is that whoever, as a producer or an OTT platform or as a studio, wants to test their film, they approach us, we watch the film or we watch the content, we recommend the target audience. We have a lot of data in our system to recommend, okay, this is the age group, this is the gender, these are the markets you should test this in. Now, once that is decided, then we deploy the actual project on ground. Now, we have a panel of more than 1 lakh people, which is registered online with us, who are people. So if you want to be a part of this screening, you can go to our Ormax online website and register there. And whenever there is a screening that is of relevance to your age and your city, it will come to you as an invitation in your email. And if you're free at that time, you'll be able to attend it. There are certain processes related to that. So there's a really big and growing panel of OTT users, of theater goers, and so on. So those people will be invited, and then they will actually come to the venue. Now the venue will be a preview theater if it is a theatrical film, but if it is a OTT thing, it is a normal venue where they're watching the content on a TV screen. So they watch the content before and after. They are asked many questions, which are again, as I said earlier, linked to our standard forecasting model, because that data is then used by us to predict the likelihood of success. So that process happens, and then some people stay back and take part in a focus group where they give their feedback qualitatively, which is why they're called focus screenings, because there's also a focus group involved where people are actually talking about what their experience was, what they liked, what they didn't like. So this is the entire process. This typically for a film will last around 5 hours. So there'll be a half an hour before, then the film, then there's an interval, and then there's a post-it. Typically, a lot of security measures are also there because producers are very wary of that in terms of the content getting leaked. So no mobile phones are allowed and those kind of things. So those measures have been in place for the last several years. Those studios and producers who are using it regularly are now quite used to the processes. So that earlier we used to have a lot of pushback on what if my climax gets leaked? What if somebody shoots it and puts it on social media? I think now, because everybody's done it so many times, that those concerns do not come up. And we have a fairly active backend process to track, all the people who come, they sign a note non-disclosure, their social media handles are taken and they're tracked by our team in the backend. So we have tested some of the biggest films. We have tested thrillers whose climax, like we have tested a film like Drishyam, for example, whose climax is virtually,
everything.
It gives everything out. But there's confidence over time that nothing leaks out from this process at all.
Okay, so anybody who's watching this interview, any part of the India, can go to your website and enroll for a test screening.
Yeah.
Aamir Khan is one actor who's very popular for holding focus group screening, be it for his film like 3 Idiots, Tare Zameen Par, or Ghajini. Which are the films or the bits were changed after looking at the feedback provided by you, sir?
Yeah, so there are many examples. Normally the prerogative is with the producers to talk about them. So I will just share the ones where the producers have gone on record themselves and spoken about it. So one of the biggest ones is a film called Mulk, which is a film directed by Anubhav Sinha. What is interesting in that film is that they didn't just change a scene or add a scene. They actually reshot the entire climax. Because if you see the film, the climax is a courtroom scene, and the judge is played by Kumud Mishra, who's a great actor. Yeah. In the original film that we tested, Kumud Mishra was not the judge. There was somebody else who was a judge. The entire climax, which is a 40-minute scene, was shot with another person. Oh. The feedback that came from the focus screenings was that this actor is actually coming across as unintentionally funny and is taking away the drama and the emotion of the scene. So that actor was actually not working for the scene. So when that feedback was shared, and to his credit, the director took it very well, and he actually said, "This is a problem. I need to fix it." So he got Kumud Mishra, and he shot those particular shots of the scene
Yeah.
where the judge is visible,
Oh.
and he changed the entire climax. It's a completely different climax, the way it's finally shaped up, because the actor changed. So it's a completely, Mulk becomes a completely different film compared to what we tested, and that's very rare. But it's something that the director actually managed to achieve, and I think it greatly helped the film, in
Yeah.
our estimate, by probably around 10-15 crore, which is a huge plus to have for a film of that nature. Another example will be Gully Boy. Uh, in that film, there is a scene in the climax, before the climax, 20 minutes before the climax, where Ranveer Singh's character goes to his friend Moin in jail, and he kind of apologizes to him. And that scene was actually not there in the original film. So what was happening was that Ranveer's character Murad was coming across as a bit selfish, in the sense that his friend is in jail, but he's not concerned and he's happy winning this contest or whatever. So when that feedback came out, the makers said, we actually have a scene, we just cut it out because we felt maybe it is adding to the length of the film. So they put it back in, and that kind of fixed a big character problem that is there. So I think there's these kind of things, and then there are many other cases where people would actually reduce the length of the film, which is a common issue. A lot of films that we test tend to be longer than they should be. So cutting down the length is one of the things that, based on the focus screening, people manage to achieve that.
Test screeners are like doctors who diagnose, prescribe medication to the filmmaker. But what happened when you have a dead on arrival? How do you break the news to the studio or the filmmaker that your film has got a very bad feedback?
So there are many dead on arrivals. So I think it's pretty regular work for us to report that. So it's not even an exception, to be honest. I think we don't worry too much about it. Our job is to be neutral and dispassionate and give the news as it is from an outside perspective. So we do that. I think we very early in our process of testing, we had one big so-called dead on arrival film, which was Shah Rukh Khan's film Ravan, Ra.1, which we tested, and he himself was involved in the process, and we had to break the news to him that his film is not going to have life beyond 1 week. I think different people have different personalities. With him, it was a great discussion. He understood it. He had questions, and he could tweak his marketing a bit and understand that this film will have a life of 1 week. So I need to market my film in a certain way to maximize the first week. So I think, everybody is different. Some people take it on the chin. Some people may get a bit defensive, but I think that's the fun of it. That every experience is a different one.
Talking about experiences, have you experienced where you experienced a cold silence when you entered in the room by a filmmaker whose film you have given not a good or a positive feedback?
No, as I said, different people have different approaches. Some people are skeptical and non-believers. They may be too attached to their product. For a filmmaker to have an entirely neutral view is not even expected, because they have worked on a product for 2-3 years. So I feel we don't put it as it's our view, because eventually we are not sitting in a room and watching and writing some feedback. We are going to the consumer. So there is an audience involved in this. And one of the things we do, which I must mention, is that we actively encourage directors and producers to come to the test screenings, and there is a CCTV room where they can actually sit and watch the focus groups. When people are talking about the film on a screen with headphones on, they can actually hear live feedback where people are either appreciating the film or sometimes ripping it apart. So when you have heard it live, it really does hit you, if it is negative or if it is positive, whichever way. So I think a lot of people, even before we break the results to them, they have gone through that experience of having attended the screenings themselves and having gotten a flavor of what kind of feedback was coming.
So which are the filmmakers who mostly like to come and attend these focus screening along with the actors?
No, actors don't normally come, and I think we don't encourage as well, because actors can be recognized at times. It can create all kind of security issues and all. And honestly, actors don't need to necessarily know all the feedback. It's a director who's most important. and maybe the producer or the key person from the studio or the production house, the executive producer who's working on the film. We see a lot of directors, almost all directors. I mean, directors want to come because they are the ones who are controlling the edit and they are the ones who are controlling the film. So any of these films, you would typically have directors. Like we test a lot of films for Dharma, for Viacom. Now, if it is Dharma, you typically see the director of the particular film coming. While the report obviously would reach Dharma and would reach Karan and Apurva and all the people at Dharma, but on the ground, the director will be the person who will be involved more closely.
So, what has been the success rate when it comes to the audience response that you have given to the studios or to the filmmakers?
It has been close to 90 to 95% in the last 3-4 years because virtually nothing has been off beyond 5-10% in terms of the forecast. Obviously, when we were starting off in the early years, till 2016, 2017, there were some films where we under predicted their success or over predicted their success. But last 4-5 years, I think it's been much easier because the back end is much more robust and a lot more data in it. And I think our panel is also much bigger now. So it's easier now to predict. And I think generally it's a very, very accurate process and people find it very easy to now kind of go with it with great conviction that it is giving a good sense of what the outcome will be.
So which type of movies and movie studios are always keen to have these screenings for? Comedy, you say?
No, I don't think it's genre driven. I think what happens is that people avoid the really big ones like the Salman Khan films or a Suryavanshi because those films are so big that they will work on the strength of their scale and star cast. So in more than genre, I think they're looking at like the mid-range film or the smaller films tend to always get tested. They would want to test a concept film, a film which doesn't have a big star, a film which is slightly different in its story. They will, because testing a Dabang or testing a Suryavanshi may have limited value, but testing a Bunty or Babli or a Chandigarh Kare Ashiki or a Neerja or a Kesari. Kesari is an Akshay Kumar film, but it is not, say, a Suryavanshi. So I think that kind of thing, that you may want the bigger ones, but everything else does get tested. Obviously, at the same time, we are still converting some skeptics, so some people still are not sure about it. So I think over time, more and more people are using it.
Shailesh Kapoor, thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you.